Joining us now from Washington, intelligence and national security reporter for NBC News and the investigative unit, Ken Delaney. And Ken, good morning. So there's been a lot of question over the last 24 hours or so about whether this was a fully automatic weapon or perhaps a semi-automatic weapon that had been adapted by the shooter to make it into a fully automatic weapon. What more can you tell us about that this morning?
Good morning, Willie. Well, we still don't have an official answer to that question, but what we have is some reporting from the Associated Press overnight that says the authorities found two bump stock devices in the hotel room, and what those are modifications, legal modifications that allow a semi-automatic weapon to fire at a rapid rate.
So,
they've been widely.
Ken, those things only cost you can get those things for like 40 or 50 bucks, right?
Exactly. And the reason they've been deemed not an illegal machine gun, Joe, is because they actually basically allow the shooter to depress the trigger at a rapid rate using the recoil of a rifle. So they don't meet the legal definition of a machine gun, at least according to the ATF. But you can go on YouTube and look at videos of these things. They certainly fire like a machine gun. And that could explain, the rapid rate of fire that we all heard and saw in those disturbing videos. It doesn't, of course, rule out that he had an illegal machine gun. As you know, machine guns have been banned since 1986, but you can buy a grandfathered one. They exist. They're very expensive and rare, but you can register with the government and buy one, and in Nevada, they're legal. So we don't know exactly, but these bump stocks are a suggestive piece of the puzzle here, and it's a puzzle that really, when we're looking at this shooter, Stephen Paddock, there isn't exactly a profile of mass shooters, but to the extent that there is one, he really doesn't fit it. I mean, he's really lived an anomalous life here. This is a man who his family says is worth up to $2 million. He's a high-stakes gambler. He appears to have been making a living as a gambler. He's 64 years old. He lived in a retirement community with his companion. He's a college graduate. There's no record of criminality or of extremism. There is this flag in his background that his father was a bank robber who was once called a psychopath. But other than that, we really don't have anything, going to his state of mind. That's the big missing piece here. And presumably authorities are going to try to develop that as they look at his computers and his social media.
Yeah, as we said earlier, Clint, it's interesting that his father was a bank robber, but not clear that it's relevant in any way other than an interesting piece of information. Does this new report from AP jibe with what you've been hearing about it perhaps being a modified, fully automatic weapon, because it is so difficult now to legally get yourself a pre-1986, very expensive and very onerous process to get a fully automatic weapon?
That's correct, and I think that makes complete sense. Even when you hear the cycle at which that is firing, it's not what you typically think. Even a machine gun actually is firing a little bit quicker and at a higher pitch. This makes sense. I mean, what you've seen pretty consistently is anytime there's a control put on fully automatic weapons, you're seeing these off-the-shelf modifications to try and enable people to have this sort of function. And then again, it comes back to what are the policies and legislation we want in this country. If this is such an easy solution to just return to fully automatic weapons, is it about the intent of we want to control fully automatic weapons, or is it about the equipment? And again, I think there's a lot more that can be done in this space. It really shows how a $50 modification to what might be a $500 weapon can turn into a mass killing device.
Yeah, and Ken, it would be so unusual, as you had said, if this were a fully automatic weapon. And you talked about, I guess, 1934 was when the law came into effect.
That's right. It goes back to Al Capone.
Yeah, and I think Charles Cook at the National Review yesterday said that there'd only been 3 crimes committed, three crimes committed with a fully automatic weapon since 1934. So, again, another example. If this is one, and we don't know yet, but if this was a fully automatic weapon that he was using, again, points to just how strange and how unusual this crime was yesterday, 2 days ago.
Yeah, absolutely. And, if any shooter was able to acquire a fully automatic weapon, it would be this guy, because he certainly had the resources. I mean, they've now upped the total to 42 guns. Those guns, as you know, cost hundreds or maybe more than $1,000. So this was an expensive arsenal that this man put together. And, there are shooting ranges in Las Vegas where you can go now and pay money to shoot a fully automatic weapon. But as you said, they're rare and they're tough to get, and you have to register. And this bump stock alternative seems to have been a much easier thing for him to accomplish.
By the way, one thing we haven't brought up yet, Mika, we need to, almost 50 minutes in, There have been weekends in Chicago where 50 people have been shot, right? I mean, this happens every day in Chicago. Worth pointing out at
With strict gun laws.
650. Yeah, with strict gun laws, but again, with a gang situation out there, that we're talking about our children being scared to go to school, scared to go to concerts. If you're a child in Chicago, you walking to school every day is a reason to fear. If you're a parent there, you've got to be afraid when you put your baby down at night that you can put your baby down and bullets can come into your home. This is this we're talking about this today. This happens every day in Chicago.
Over 50 people aren't killed every day in Chicago, but for example, to get some numbers, I believe this past weekend, 32 people were shot, 4 were killed.
No.
It is a part of daily life.
This
in
past
Chicago.
weekend in Chicago, 32 people shot.
Yeah.
There's a very significant difference, though, between Chicago and Las Vegas, and it begins with motive. In Chicago, there's motive for nearly every shooting.
This is
It's, you know, a pair of sneakers.
mind-boggling.
It's you snitched. It's you were seen talking to this girl. It's you're on the wrong
Drugs.
street. You
a
crossed
war.
the territory.
Drugs,
it's
right.
gangs. It's the access to handguns.
Right.
That are, you know, you can actually rent a handgun. If you're
Right.
in one gang, you can rent a handgun. I need a gun tonight, Willie. I'll give you $25. I got to use your gun from 8 to midnight.
out of
I'll give it
control.
back to you.
Well,
Las Vegas, there's no motive here.
Right,
It's a mystery.
And they're dead.
There's no digital.
But you know what,
trail.
though? On both sides, you're talking about how you're basically alluding to the insanity of gun laws that allow this to continue from Orlando to Las Vegas. I agree completely. But again, why isn't there more of a resolve to not only take care of this? Why isn't there more of a resolve to take care of what's happening in Chicago? We've done it in New York. And by the way, anybody walking around New York in the 1970s or the 1980s know what a remarkable turnaround Giuliani and Bloomberg and de Blasio's continued. What a remarkable turnaround that has been. So.
All right, NBC's Ken Delaney on. Thank you very much. Up
Thanks,
next,
guys.
we're going to speak with Congress.